Hello everyone, my name is Ezra, and in this video I will be showing you how I got my Radeon 56 graphics cards to run just about completely fully automatic without me touching it. So I've written a batch file that disables and enables each graphics card. Then I also have a separate script that runs the MSIAfterburner to apply the overclock. And then finally I have a third batch script to start the xmr-stak-amd miner. So this video is not going to be as short and concise and completely straight to the point as my other videos. So maybe you want to put on like 1.25 speed or 1.5 speed on the playback. So here I have the scripts running, 3 or 4 disable commands, and then there's the enable. So my HDMI graphics card just got enabled because the screen flickered. And then I have a 3-second timer between each command just so that all my graphics cards aren't disabling and enabling all at once, because I think that could lead to problems. So I have this MSIAfterburner overclock onto 30-second delay because it takes about 30 seconds to disable and enable. And then I have my miner to run 36 seconds after startup because MSIAfterburner takes a little bit to start up. So that took a little bit longer. I was a bit worried there for a second, but it looks like it's all compiling fine. My overclock is applied fine, except for the core voltage. So usually I would move this down. Well, in my setting I have it saved to -125. That saves about 100 watts on the power draw, straight from the wall. So one issue that I am having with this setup is my Afterburner seems to be a little bit glitchy, and it doesn't like to apply the overclock. If it does apply the overclock, see, I have 1925 core clock. Sorry, I keep bumping the tripod. And then my memory clock is 920. So sometimes it won't even apply that, but then if it does apply it, it doesn't apply the core voltage. So this is a setup, the way that I'm showing you, it works, it works like 30 to 50% of the time. I mean, I'm surprised that it even applied the core clock and the memory clock. So I did have an issue. I've run this a couple times. I've restarted my computer about 10 times using this this technique, and at one point my hashes were only 5,000. So I thought that what I figured out is I basically reinstalled my blockchain Crimson ReLive drivers, and it now it's working again. So yeah, this isn't 100% foolproof, but it's just kind of like a working model, and I want to show you guys what I've done. So I'm just going to close this program. I'm just going to close everything. So we're going to start fresh. So one thing that you're going to want to do before starting this technique is type in UAC for change user account control settings, and then you want to have this. Normally I believe the default is this one right here. Oh, it's not letting me change it. It's this one right here. It like notifies, it asks you for permission for the program to change settings on your computer, sorry, I said that weird. But if you want to disable and enable your Vegas, which you will have to in order to get the full hash rate, then you don't want to click the yes, give permission for every time it disables and then every time it enables. So to fix that, just go to user account control settings and then click this to never notify me. So second thing you want to do is download the blockchain ReLive drivers. If you're a Vega miner, I'm sure that you already know about that. Let's see. Yeah, sorry guys, this isn't as quick or finely edited as I would normally do, just because I'm just trying to do it in one or two takes. So Google Radeon Crimson ReLive drivers, and then go down here, and depending on your operating system, if you're mining, you should have a 64-bit Windows operating system, and it only works for Windows 7 and Windows 10, unfortunately. So I actually had to upgrade this system to Windows 10 just so that would work. So the third thing that you want to do, the third thing you want to do actually is go to your motherboard BIOS settings, and find a setting where it says start on AC, or start on AC power, start on AC power on, something like that. What that does is, as soon as your power supply is plugged in to the wall and it receives power and it's on, the little switch is flipped on, it will just start your computer as soon as it gets power. So in case of a power outage, once the power does come back on and the power supply recognizes that, it should turn on. Now, I have had some problems with that actually happening. That works about 70% of the time. So once again, this method is not foolproof. I believe it's because the Vegas are just so new that there's not really that much software, and there's not that much software on AMD's end, and the miners haven't really implemented all of the things that Vega can do, or it's not as stable as it should be. So once you do that, now we're ready to download some software. You're going to want DevManView, so just Google DevManView. You'll find Near South, so it should be the first link. And it's basically an alternative to Device Manager. Device Manager is where you can enable and disable your Vegas. That's what I've been doing for about a month and a half now before I just started this method. So go ahead and scroll down, and you can download it. It's like just at the bottom. This is for 32-bit operating systems, and this is for 64, so we're just going to download that. And it's not that big of a file, so you can drag that over to whichever hard drive you have or want. If you have multiple, then pick whichever one you want. And we're just going to drag it over here, and then continue. And here it is. So these are the 3 files that are included in the zip file. You're going to want to extract. I have 7-zip. I believe you can just extract anyways. So there's your extracted file. Then you can delete the zip file that you just downloaded, because it's going to create a new file that you can actually work with. And this is, so that was just for demonstrational purposes. I already have one installed, so we're going to delete that. So yours will look something like, it won't include any of these except for the README. Anyways, what you want to do is double click DevManView and then find, that's weird, why is it doing that? That has never happened before. Okay, so this is what it looks like. You're going to need to find your graphics cards here. And my DevManView is being really weird. I've never seen this happen, but if I mouse over, it starts scrolling over to the right. So that's going to put a damper on this tutorial, but nonetheless, you're going to want to go over to, so here's my first graphics card, my second, third, and fourth. So I'm going to want to right-click on my first one, and then click, actually we just want to double-click on that Vega. So once you double-click on your Vega, you're going to see the device instance ID, and just press Control-C to copy, and then go over to a notepad, whichever one you like, Notepad++, doesn't matter. So paste that in, and then go all the way over to the left, and then type devmanview.exe/disable. So what that is going to do, this is going to be oh, what is going on with my computer right now? This is really weird. Here, I bet I can fix it. There we go. So what this is going to do, when you launch this file, it runs this script, and what this script does is disable this graphics card that you copy and pasted. So before you launch it or save it, before any ampersand that's in there, you're going to want to put this caret right in front of the ampersand. What that does is basically tells the command line to ignore the ampersand, because what the normal command line wants to do is run a command, because ampersand means a command to the command prompt, and if it runs this, if it actually takes the ampersand as a command, then it will cause errors. So the caret will escape that character and just treat it as a normal, normal string or a normal line of code. So then what I've done is timeout/T3 for 3 seconds. So basically what that does, like I mentioned earlier, I have a 3-second delay in between each disable and enable command. I just realized. Disable. So yeah, 3 seconds in between each disable command, and that basically is for what's it called? Stability. There we go. So now I'm going to double click on this next one, copy that one, paste it in here, and then do the same exact thing. So DevManView.exe/disable, and then don't forget about the carets. Never forget about the carets. Otherwise you will have an issue and it will not work. Luckily there's only a handful of ampersands. But the ampersands and 8s, they look similar, so watch out for those. Alright, so and then you want to, at the end of your file, type the pause command. Alright, actually, this one is going to be enable. So we're going to disable the command, or disable the graphics card with the HDMI in it. So it will, you know what, I just realized, this tutorial is going, going okay. So, alright, so we're going to disable the first graphics card with the HDMI in it, wait 3 seconds, enable it, wait 3 seconds again, and then the pause will just completely pause the program, and you'll be able to see if it ran successfully or if there are errors. So, go to File, Save As, and then find where your DevManView.exe file is. So, whichever hard drive you dragged your DevManView over to and unzipped it to, go over to there, and then click Save As Type, All Files, and you'll see that your DevManView application is in there. That's the .exe file. So you really want to make sure that that's in there. So disable first card, disable first card, and then you want to save it as a bat file. I cannot type, dude. So name it whatever you want. Alright, disable first card .bat. So you want to save it as a .bat file because that turns it into a Windows batch file. So when you save that as a batch file and double click it, you'll see it runs a command. So it just disabled the card, and then it just enabled it, and then it should be all good. So, oh, timeout. Default option is not allowed more than 1 time. That's weird. What is going on here? This is a very raw and unfiltered and unplanned tutorial right here. There we go. So that was our error. I'm going to click Control S to save it. Once you make a change that you want to keep, don't forget to save it. And we're just going to run that again just to show you it actually working for real this time. So I'm going to include that error just because it's so easy to mess up and be like, oh, why isn't this working? Well, it's something simple. You put the, for example, I put the T in front of this frickin' slash thing. There's a real name for it. So anyways, I have actually already written a program that will disable and enable each graphics card one at a time. So the first 4 lines will disable all 4 cards with 3 seconds in between, and then the last 4 lines, or the last 4 commands, enable each one at a time with 3 seconds in between, and then the pause. So once again, this one that I actually use is in the same folder as the devmanview.exe file. Do not forget to do that, otherwise it will not work. So actually, I'm going to do Task Manager, which is Task Manager. And then go to your startup folder, and these are all the different programs that are going to run when your computer starts. So what you want to do, because you can't drag and drop this folder over here, because, you know what, you're actually going to have to go over to here, open a window in your this PC, open a new window, and then in search this PC, type startup, and it will, depending on how many files you have on your computer, how big your hard drive is, it might take a while to actually find the startup folder that we're looking for. Nonetheless, we have to find it. So, like I said, you can't really just drag and drop this folder over to the startup folder, because this batch file has to be in the same file as your DevManView. It has to be in the same folder as your DevManView.exe file. So I'm going to delete disable first card, and our startup folder should be found here in a second. Any second now. This is why I say you should fast forward this video about like 1.5 times, because it's pretty raw. So there's our startup folder. Double click on it, and instead of dragging and dropping, before you drop it, before you let go of that mouse, click the Alt key, and it will create a link to this program. So when this startup folder starts, it will see this shortcut, and it will point this startup folder over to this disable graphics cards function, or batch file. So now, I'm trying to delete this, but it's not working. There we go. So now we're going to look at our second program that we have to write, which is start MSIAfterburner. So what you want to do for this is find your Afterburner program folder. Mine's in program x86 in MSIAfterburner. There's our MSIAfterburner.exe file. And then, so what you're going to want to do is create new, well, you want to get a new notepad thing going here. And then it's pretty simple. So timeout/t, and then 30 seconds, because it takes about 30 seconds to disable and enable all the graphics cards. Since I have 4, you might have 1, you might have 6. It might take more or less time to do that, so just change this number. Say you only have 2 graphics cards and it takes 15 seconds, and just do timeout/t15. I'm going to do 30. And then MSIAfterburner.exe, and then enter for the new line. And then pause, because you want to make sure and see that it is actually working, and if it has any error messages, that pause thing will allow you to see it. So once again, go to File, Save As, find your MSIAfterburner folder. So there we are, and then you want to go Save As Type All Files. And then I'm just going to, since I already have one that's written, I just called it Start MSIAfterburner, so I'm just going to save it just like that. And then don't forget to do the .bat file extension. So do not forget that. And then save. And you probably won't have this, but I'm going to replace it. And then minimize that. And then now, once again, you go over to your startup folder, and then click drag and drop it over. Hold Alt before you let go to create the link. And then boom, there you go. So it'll look something like this, and then when you when it's actually run, well, it'll wait 30 seconds, and then eventually it'll start MSIAfterburner. So that's our second out of our 3 programs that we have to write. Now I'm going to go over to my xmr-stak-amd folder, or xmr-stak folder with the .exe in it. There it is. I'm just going to rename and then Control Copy to actually copy the name of the actual exe file. And then new text document, we're going to call it run miner. I'm going to delete this one. So we're going to open up run miner, and basically timeout/t36. And okay, so we just ran, we had our MSIAfterburner program running, and after 30 seconds it launched it. And then here's our folder once again, or here's our file, and then here's our output. So you'll see it's just sitting there waiting. If there is a problem launching this program, it will say so in here. It'll give you some sort of error message. But we don't see an error message, plus it launched, so we know that it worked. So I'm just going to go ahead and close out of that. And close out of this. So this is going to be our launch the miner program right here. So timeout/t36, because we want it to wait 36 seconds, because that's how long it takes for the Vegas to disable enable. then also MSIAfterburner to start up because we want the miner to start after MSIAfterburner starts. So now we're going to paste that name of the .exe file and then put the .exe file extension after that and then pause. And this can work in basically any miner that you have, in any program that you have really. If you have CC miner, if you have SG miner, just make sure that you copy the name of the actual file that launches the miner. Make sure that it is the .exe file, or if there's a batch file included, then it's even easier. You can just, it should be pretty self-explanatory. So there we go. Now file, save as, find where your xmr-stak is. Mine is in the local disk, xmr-stak-amd, system or save as type all files, and then run miner .bat. There we go, we saved it, so we're gonna minimize that, and then we're gonna go back to our startup folder, and here you see our new batch file. You get the point. Drag and drop, hold Alt to create the link. Make sure you hold Alt, drag and drop, boom, it's in there. I'm gonna delete that because I'm just doing it for demonstrational purposes. And there we go. So your run miner will look something like that. And that is, I believe that's it, you guys. So we're just going to restart the computer and I'm going to show you all the work that we've done. I got my glass of water, staying hydrated for this 20-minute tutorial. Unedited for most of the part. I think there's one part that I have to edit out. But yeah, guys, this is, once again, as I said, it's about 90%, it works about 90% of the time. Mostly due in part because of the MSIAfterburner not applying the overclock, and then also because the blockchain ReLive drivers, I had to actually reinstall those after running this a couple times. I don't know if it was an issue with the batch files that I wrote, or just because I was restarting it so much. Maybe a combination of both. So there we go. I restarted my computer, and make sure, I forgot to mention this way earlier, if you're going to do this method, make sure that you don't have a password on your computer, because if you do, then you'll have to type it in, and if you have to type it in, then it's not fully automatic. So here are 3 miners going, or 3 programs. It's disabling them one at a time, and then I'm actually going to, whoops. Okay, there's a, so it just enabled our first graphics card, almost done. 2 out of the 4 have been enabled, 3 out of the 4 have been enabled, and there's our 4th one. So now we go over to our MSIAfterburner. It is starting right now. There we go, it started, and then our run miner just started, so it's calling the program, and now it is starting to run. So the only thing that I have to change here is the power saver mode, because I want to save power. I want to save about 100 watts. So yeah, guys, this is if you want to get your alright, so this is the whole point of this tutorial. It's not to set up your miner to be the very best miner automatically. It's not going to be on the best settings because of the MSIAfterburner overclock settings kind of being weird. However, if your power goes out and you're on vacation, you're away from home for a day, you're away for a couple hours, if your power comes back on, instead of your computer just sitting there like a brick and not being powered on, your computer will automatically sense that there's power coming in, will automatically turn the computer on, launch the miners, launch the overclock, disable and enable your graphics cards, and instead of getting full hash rate that you would get, you at least won't be missing out on 3 hours or however long that you're gone. You won't be missing out on all that time of mining. You'll at least get a percentage of what you normally have, or a percentage of what you normally get in your hash rate. I hope that that makes sense. I think I over-explained it a little bit, but that's it, guys. We're getting, basically, we're getting optimal hash rate here, and that was all done with our batch files and putting the shortcuts in the startup folder, disabling the UAC so it doesn't ask for permission, changing your motherboard to detect power and turn on when it does have power. changing your password from logging in. You don't want to have a password because you don't want to log in. Otherwise, you'll be right there. You'll just have to log in and you'll start mining. But if it's automatic and you're away from home, then you can't mine, or you can't enter your password from there. So that's it, you guys. If you have any ideas as to how to get MSIAfterburner to work properly, to properly apply our overclock settings, or if you have any other tips on a batch file that we can use, or any other program that we could use to overclock, that would be much appreciated. If you guys enjoyed this video, leave a like. I'll see you down in the comments. I usually reply to all the comments, most of them anyways. And yeah, guys, I hope to see you soon, and I hope that this works for you, more importantly. Alright guys, I will see you next time.